Xardu-Layak served as a Dark Apostle of the Wordbearers Legion during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. A Terran-born veteran of the 17th Legion were known as the Imperial Heralds, burning untold hundreds of religious temples and tomes of prayer of now extant pagan cultures. Layak would be the most devout of all the Legion's destroyer marines. Broken in spirit by the Emperor's censure of the Legion during the burning of Monarchia on the world of Kur, Layak would in his contrite state seek benefactors to fulfill his pious soul. Following the teachings of Erebus, Layak would see visions seemingly bestowed by his Genesire, beseeching him not to destroy fell knowledge, but to read and understand their lessons. Studying every pronouncement from his Primarch's own writings, the Book of Lorgar, the Astartes of a now long-lost name would assume the epithet of the Eater of Wisdom. Adopting fiery red cloth to his panoply, he would be regarded by his legion as the Crimson Apostle for his ritual of daubing his ceramite with his own blood. With the Wordbearers Legion's fall to the ruinous powers, Layak would become host of many of their foul gifts. Donning a demonic helmet, which he would chain directly to the flesh of his face, Layak would pledge to never let any see his visage save for his new benefactors, the Gods of Chaos. Reborn as the Binder of Souls, Voice of the Unspeaking, or Fryspawn, Layak would be reassigned to the chapter of the Ochre Gate by First Chaplain Erebus, to which Layak and his chapter would wander from the oversight of his legion on numerous occasions. Transforming his men into the chapter of the Unspeaking, Layak would grow powerful enough to bear the notice and disquiet of the first captain of the legion, Kor Phaeron. Mounting an infernal brazier upon his chest, Layak would wield the corrupted forestaff Azurda Charis in the name of the Four and command a retinue of blade slaves to act as his personal bodyguards. Acting during the infamous Battle of Kalf, Layak would command his Ashen Circle destroyer units to massacre the civilian populace of the planet during the opening stages of the battle. Retreating before its conclusion and poisoning of Kalf's son, Layak and his men would be redeployed during the Shadow Crusade as the Wordbearers now allied with the World Eaters to devastate the Ultramar system. Providing personal counsel to his Primarch, Lorgar Aurelian, Layak would prove invaluable to the Urizen and usurp Erebus and Kor Phaeron as his closest advisor. Yet with the conclusion of the Horus Heresy drawing closer, Xardu-Layak would betray his master's misplaced favor. Confiding with Layak that the War Master of Chaos had proved to be unworthy of the favor of the ruinous powers, Lorgar Aurelian would attempt to usurp Horus Lupercal. Allying with the now ascended Demon Primarch of the Emperor's Children, Fulgrim, Layak would bind the Phoenician to his will by invoking his true name. Yet as Lorgar enacted his coup to usurp the Lupercal at the muster point of Ulanor, his deception had already been revealed to the War Master. After being assaulted by Horus, Lorgar would be betrayed by Xardu-Layak as the Crimson Apostle freed Fulgrim from his bindings. Ordering Lorgar to leave his sight, the 5,000 Wordbearers of the Unspeaking Chapter would serve the War Master under the command of Layak. Realizing that he had now completely forgotten his past self, Xardu-Layak would be unflinching in his duty to aid the War Master's men and gift his arcane knowledge during the Siege of Terra. Intervening during the Solar War by crippling the defense forces surrounding Terra, the Unspeaking Chapter would fight alongside First Captain Ezekiel Abaddon and his Justaeron. Saving Abaddon's life during their destruction of the White Scar's battleship, the Lance of Heaven, Ezekiel would regardless express disgust and misgivings to his Celis allies. Closely advising Horus Lupercal within the Lupercal's court of the Vengeful Spirit, Layak would serve as a conduit to the War Master regarding the will of the Dark Gods. Abaddon would protest that Layak's influence over the War Master was a detriment to his usual efficacy in battle, yet Horus would command Ezekiel not to harm the Crimson Apostle. Now known as the Left Hand of Horus, Layak would prove a capable propagandist and bear the word of chaos with relentless devotion.
I am the prophet of the gods. I am Horus's servant. And I say to you, rejoice! The gods are coming here to this world. They will bestow their powers and their wisdom to any person strong and faithful enough to take it. Look upon me and witness one of their champions. I swear to you that they will treat mercifully those who turn their backs upon the false emperor. They will be kind to those who kneel to the righteous power of this universe. This is my pledge. You will survive. You will prosper. You will know mastery of this realm and glory in the next. This is their compact with me, and through me, with you.
Fanatical in his service to the ruinous powers, Lyak and his men would eagerly martyr themselves upon the soil of Terra in the name of their foul pantheon. Broadcasting sermons to the defenders of the Imperial Palace, promising salvation in the name of chaos, Lyak would even aid the Thousand Sons and their Primarch, Magnus the Red, in weakening the psychic barrier around the Imperial Palace, repelling demonic invasion. Revealing to Abaddon that the combined power of the gods of chaos were rapidly consuming the War Master's soul, Lyak would hint that Abaddon's own destiny had been marked for greatness in the eyes of the Pantheon. Ordered to fight alongside the Death Guard First Captain Typhus during the assault of the Lionsgate spaceport, Lyak would summon the Greater Demon, Korvax Utterblight, to aid them in their efforts. With the final crucial battles of the Siege of Terra underway, Lyak and Ezekiel Abaddon would observe the champion of the World Eaters, Kharn, fall in battle against the vigilant Lord Commander of the Palace Defense, Primarch Rogel Dawn. Seeking to rescue Kharn from the Praetorian, Abaddon would, against Lyak's advisements, attempt to rescue Kharn. Knowing Abaddon's fate as the inheritor of the mantle of War Master, Zardu Lyak would sacrifice his being in order to prevent the well-laid plans of Chaos from being ruined. Confronting Rogel Dawn in battle, Lyak would hold the son of the Emperor at bay with sorcery as Ezekiel dragged Kharn from the fray. Mortally wounded by Dawn, Lyak would send a psychically transmitted message to Abaddon, telling him that he would be destined to become a true champion of Chaos. Self-destructing his body with an explosion of arcane power, the vast crater left by the warp energies of the blast would allow for the first immaterial portal to allow the invasion of demons to manifest. Regarded by his legion as a hero of legend, Lyak's zealous piety in the name of the Four would be a terrible omen of the future depravity that the 17th Legion would go on to commit for millennia to come. The legacy of the Crimson Apostle, one of treachery, corruption, and heresy.